because you know they're going to attack it at full speed. This is it. This is going to be as if it's any other regular season game. And Pop, what's going on, man?
Son, back to normal.
Back to normal, like it never happened. All of a sudden, back on the West Coast. Pop holding it down on our East Coast office. We are back live for you guys. Dom and Pop podcast, Dallas pregame today. New Year's Day recording it. You know we never miss a beat here. And we're getting into it. But guys, before we get started, a huge thank you to all of our subscribers. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead, hit that subscribe button. We're sure you're going to enjoy it. We've been gaining subs. We're at 960 and change or something like that, Pop. Yeah, we've been gaining subs at a breakneck speed. So subscribe, stick around. There might be some rewards at some point for our subscribers. We've been known to do a giveaway. Nothing in the works yet, but I'm sure we'll get something going for 2025, so you guys are going to want to be here, be a part of that.
We've been too busy in the lab breaking down the season, but so close to 1,000 subs, so we'd love to hit that milestone. Tell your friends. It would be awesome to get there as part of another playoff icing on the cake.
Yeah, it would be the cherry on top for what has been a pretty magical season to be a Commanders fan this season. And man, let's get right into it, man. Let's hit this vibe check. You know, that's how we start off every pregame podcast, every weekday pod. But where are your vibes at, Pop? I mean, we are 11-5. Playoffs are clinched. We are currently the 6th seed. How you feeling?
Feeling great. How can you not be? I mean, we've exceeded all expectations. So, just awesome. I mean, the last 3 games have been incredible. They've all been thrillers. Could do for a little less of that this next week. Maybe we're due for an easy one. But it was great. I mean, you were undefeated while you were home, which was awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
For, just a terrific run so far. I mean, 4 straight wins. I guess we'll be shooting for our 5th here. I think I got that right. So we went from 7-5 to 11-5. Jaden Daniels is our quarterback. We're not going to go 20 minutes without mentioning his name.
Yeah.
He's just incredible. I mean, if he gets the ball in his hands on that last drive, I was talking to a couple of people New Year's Eve festivities. I stopped by my wife's work. They were having an event there, and we were just kind of talking about it. And it's like, Jaden Daniels gets the ball, you win that coin toss. You got so much confidence that he's going to get it done. If there was only one concern, which maybe we'll get into at the keys of the game, is he's been having to put that Superman cape on to get us wins, and you just worry a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing for me. That's been kind of the only thing that brought me down a little bit on the vibes is just like, man, this kid, and it's a double-edged sword, right? Because on one side, Jaden Daniels is so good. I maintain this. I think this is a pretty whatever football team, top to bottom, talent-wise. I think it's probably middle of the NFL, maybe closer to the second half of the middle third than or the bottom half of the middle third than the top half. But you've got a guy in Jaden Daniels who just every week seems to stand on his head, make a play when you need him to. He's never wrong. He's just early. Like, he's always on time. He's always exactly where you need him to be when you need him to be there. There's no doubt. I mean, you win the coin toss and you just know ball's in Jaden Daniels' hands. You're winning that football game. You knew every game he throws the pick against Philly. And I said, there's 4 minutes left on the clock. If the defense can get a stop and we get the ball back in our hands, we win this football game. And you look back on the games that we've lost this year against Baltimore, against Dallas, against Philly, and against Pittsburgh, all those games are games that we lost with the ball on the defensive side of the ball, not being able to get the ball back into Jaden's hand at the end of the game, with the exception of the Dallas game, which we lost on a missed extra point. So you can't, we lost the Dallas game on a missed extra point with Jaden Daniels scoring a game-winning touchdown on that drive, or a game-tying touchdown at the last second.
Right.
So there's just no reason to be anything other than over the moon. I know it's my very long roundabout way of saying that, but you got to be just ecstatic. I think now is a great time to kind of take a step back and go, wow, we're 11-5. We have an opportunity to be 12-5 in our first year of this rebuild. Expectations are going to be sky high for next year. We are really heading towards setting up something incredible. And you've got this kid now on a rookie deal for 4 years. You've got 4 more years of Jaden Daniels on a rookie deal with one of the best young, hottest general manager candidates in the NFL to build a roster around him, one of the best ownership groups in the NFL to support him. It's just the most exciting time to be a fan of a franchise that I can remember. We got our Steph Curry, man. That's what I keep saying. I liken it to when the Warriors got Steph. That's what this feels like to me. It just is like the beginning of something incredible.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at those 5 losses, and that tells you a lot too, because we were in most of those games. Maybe the Bucks game, maybe the Eagles game, kind of got away from us, but we were in most of those games. That tells you a lot. I think, I saw something on Twitter earlier. I mean, hopefully the source was reliable, but talked about our strength of schedule, not being as bad as people make it out to be. Oh, they had an easy schedule, that's why they have a good record. That's not exactly true.
Yeah.
If you look at the stats. So, there's some teams with better records than we had that had easier schedules. So, yeah, you got to feel great about things. And I think, the one point I was thinking about as you were talking about, we're certainly not an 11-5 team without Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
And I do think Adam Peters has built a strong enough roster where that maybe that 7-8 win team that we were predicting, with a lesser performance at quarterback was still doable. I think some of the performances we've gotten out of guys like Luvu and Wagner and
Martin.
Ertz,
and
Chin, and I'm going to leave people out, but even an OZ at receiver and Brown when he was healthy. I mean, and we've seen that upgrade to the offensive line. Not a lot of depth there. You could definitely see the pain when guys go out, but guys like Biadasz and Allegretti and Coleman, in the draft. I mean, I think that there was he's getting help for sure, but you're not an 11-win team without Jaden Daniels, anywhere near it. And you got to be excited because it's just year one, and they're going to continue to build this roster. This is a destination now where players seem to want to come. Dan Quinn has done just a terrific job in turning the culture around. Nothing to be excited about, not to be excited about, I should say.
Yeah. And we're hot at the right time of the year. And I think that's the most important thing, is that we're hot at the right time of the year. And God willing, we have potential to start getting healthy at the right time of the year as well. So let's get into some of those key injuries. Austin Eckler, full participant in practice this week, which is just absolutely massive for that run game, which has been something that we've struggled with these last few weeks. And it's funny, you didn't necessarily immediately credit the struggle in the run game to an Austin Eckler thing, but it does kind of coincide with, you lose Eckler, you lose that second element of a guy that can kind of get to that second level a little bit faster than a Brian Robinson, and all of a sudden the run game has kind of deteriorated at the same side. You can't run a lot of those 2-back sets we were running a lot earlier in the year. Things get a little more predictable. So
also what he gives you in the pass game, right? He's the other backs are not as much as maybe they can be pass catchers. They're not what you would call like primary pass catchers. And Eckler, I think I think it's put more pressure on Jaden Daniels not having Austin Eckler out there. So getting him back, whether or not he'll play this week or not, I'm not sure that matters that
Yeah,
much. But getting him back for a playoff game
massive.
is going to be huge.
Yeah, massive.
Big help.
Tyler Biadasz, we did have quite a bit of non-practices or did not practices today, with Tyler Biadasz being probably the most important player, or maybe the second, but I would say most important player out of this list to not practice with that ankle injury. Michael Dieter did perform relatively well in his absence last week, so thankful for that, but that's not a guy that you want starting week in and week out. So would be great to have Biadasz back, but I would say at best he's questionable for this weekend with the did not practice on Wednesday. De'Ami Brown, hamstring, did not practice. Marshawn Lattimore, same hamstring, did not practice. Cornelius Lucas, groin, did not practice. And Andrew Wiley, groin, did not practice. Although I've been hearing that Wiley is trending towards being able to go this weekend. So, or is at least kind of one step closer to where he's kind of on the trajectory they were hoping he'd be on to get ready for Sunday, which I guess includes not practicing today.
But you got to ask yourself, how much do you really want to push it with these guys in this game now that you've clinched, right? And I don't. Yeah, we're going to get into how to approach the game. That's one of our topics. So I don't have any doubt that when Dan Quinn said, they want to go for it, they want to win, they want to go all out. But that can be interpreted a few different ways. Maybe there's some guys that would play if this was a playoff game that might get an extra week's rest, given the circumstance and the situation. Doesn't mean the guys we put on the field aren't going to go all out and try to beat Dallas, who's depleted as well, right? So I think those are all factors. I would lean towards none of these guys playing this weekend. I think that's what we're going to see.
Yeah, I think so, and I think you've got a Dallas team that doesn't have all that much to play for. You saw they kind of just rolled over against Philly last week. Cooper Rush got exposed for sure on that back end, but that is the best defense in the NFL, so that's definitely something to be to factor in. But Dallas at this point in the year, they're shutting down starters. You'd be surprised if like a guy like Micah Parsons, plays. It's an interesting thing going into this Dallas game. Like I said, they've got nothing to play for. They don't even have the spoiler role to play for at this point because we've clinched. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a lot of guys that probably don't get a ton of time trying to put something on tape to get their next job, which is valid in the NFL and definitely something you got to be aware of. But
I think there's a dynamic with Dallas going into this game where I tend to agree. Like, I don't think they're going to play certain guys. However, it means a lot to McCarthy.
Yeah.
And sweeping Washington, it was a notch on his belt. I don't know that they're going to lay down. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
You never can go in. You should never go into an NFL game expecting them to lay down. But the context of with these guys, the key guys like Biadasz and Lattimore specifically, and I mean, Lucas and Wiley, that impact for me with the two of those guys out is greater than the sum of its parts, because then you're talking about Trent Scott starting in a playoff game. And that's not where you want to be. All respect to Trent Scott. He's done good when he's needed to do. No NFL team wants to be down to their fourth string tackle in the first game of the playoffs. You never want to be there. So hopefully these are soft tissue things that are aggravated. Hopefully we're headed back in the right direction. We can get at least one, if not both, back by that playoff game. But before the playoff game, we got the Dallas game. So I say it's time to zone in, all in on Dallas for this game. And then maybe we can get back to some playoff scenarios after we finish our Dallas breakdown. What do you say, Pop?
Sure.
So let's
run
do
the
it.
Ship, Captain.
Let's do it. I'm in. So basically, Dan Quinn has said, quote, we are going to go after it as hard as we can in terms of getting that 6th seed, staying in the 6th seed. And for me, it's less about getting the 6th seed and it's more about keeping the momentum and staying hot going into the playoffs, going into these next couple of weeks. So that is very important in terms of this Dallas game, because they're going to attack it at full speed. This is it. This is going to be as if it's any other regular season game. And as much as you said, Pop, it's a notch in McCarthy's belt to sweep Washington, I think Quinn doesn't want to get swept by his old team. As much as you say it's a notch
I agree.
in McCarthy's belt, we can't get swept by Dallas, who has been, not the worst team in the division, because we have the worst team in football in our division. They don't even know how to tank in the New York Giants. But we've got what would be in most years the worst team in this division, and the Cowboys has not been a very good football team. Half the team is hurt.
But they've been fighting, to their credit. I mean, maybe not so much last week against the Eagles, but
they've been fighting, but they've still not been a very good football team, regardless of the fight, and that can't be a team you get swept by. So I think that's just as important in terms of how we approach it. In terms of the Dallas scouting report, McCarthy has said that Cooper Rush, Trey Lance, and Will Grier will be ready at quarterback. Bet the under on Will Grier snaps. I do think it might be interesting with Trey Lance. And I think he doesn't name all three quarterbacks unless maybe there is a plan to go to Trey Lance. I think they should be ready for Trey Lance. If I was Dallas, I'd let him start. See what he's got. I mean, what's the point there's literally no point in winning another football game if you're Dallas. So see what Trey has. If he shows well, maybe you could trade him somewhere. Maybe there's a trade market for him, or maybe he's worth keeping around as a backup to Dak. You could trade Rush. I don't know. It's a mess over there. Jerry Jones, you're doing great. Keep it up. But overall, I mean, very talented team in Dallas. I think even with the amount of injuries, they've underperformed the amount of talent they have. Definitely a team that can catch you sleeping. We want to talk about all the injuries and whatever. They beat us earlier this year. And frankly, they were kind of whooping on us. That game, it was a close game in terms of the score, but we didn't really play good ball until the fourth quarter of that game, and they definitely had us right where they wanted us for most of that game. So hopefully we can kind of get into that, and with that, I'm going to go.
And no CD Lamb this game, I think, is big.
Yeah, no CD Lamb is huge, especially with our wide receiver or our cornerback situation being what it is. I think you feel a lot better about Mike Sainristil and Jalen Tolbert battle than you felt about Michael Davis or Benjamin St. Juste and CD Lamb battle. That's definitely just somewhere you're more comfortable going into this game. Ezekiel Elliott was just cut this week. So if they need, half a yard gain, I don't know who they're going to hand the ball off to. That's trouble for them. Where do you go in the situations where you need a 2nd and 11? How do you do that? Pop is completely missing my joke here, but it's all good. But honestly, I don't know a ton in terms of scouting report this week that's worth breaking down all of Dallas's backups.
Nah, we don't. We're not really sure who's going to play. I mean, they got crushed by Eagles who were playing some backups themselves.
Yep.
They were totally beat up at quarterback and still were able to run all over them. Of course, Saquon was doing Saquon things.
Yeah.
I would say, just in terms of the importance of this game, comment on that really quick. I think keeping the 6th seed is a good thing. You don't want to go to Philly, in my opinion. We'll get into that a little bit with the matchups. I think keeping some momentum going, winning is good. So I think going into the playoffs with a win is important. It'd be nice if it was an easier type win. So maybe get after them early, and then maybe we could take the foot off the gas a little bit. And we haven't responded great off break or off, mini breaks or the Thursday Night Football League break or the bye week, right? So I think we want to just keep some positive momentum going, but preferably it's not with Jaden Daniels rushing the ball 16 times this week, which I think you'll get into as we talk about our keys.
Yeah, for sure. That's it. But I say we get right into those keys.
Yeah,
let's get into it. So key number 1, these keys all kind of tie in to the same thing, which is the overall general thing is we need to not make this harder on ourselves than it needs to be. this week. So key number one is going to be get ahead early, come out hot. I think we did a great job of that against Atlanta last week. Turn the ball over, score a touchdown right off the bat. We needed to follow up a little bit better after that. But if we start that way and we can kind of regress to the mean a little bit with the rest of the play for that first half, I think you're in a situation you like. So get ahead early, come out hot, whether that be Jaden Daniels kind of getting the ball in the air on some of those quick passes or getting the game going or whatever is fine with me. But I want to get ahead early and come out hot. And in my personal opinion, I think the best way to do that is going to be establish that run game and staying in control of the clock, which is our second key. And it doesn't necessarily need to be the run game as much as, you see those routes where they get Terry in motion and then it's just a speed out to Terry McLaurin on the first play, 7 yards. Ball control football is the second key. Maybe that's a better way for me to put it there. I think that's going to be key. Stay in control of the clock, stay in, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, 4th and 1, say in those kinds of situations where you don't need to have Jaden Daniels put the Superman cape on. Penalties are going to be crucial to that. We've been getting penalized like crazy these last few weeks. Do not need 1st and 15, 1st and 20, delay of game penalties, stupid stuff like that. Pop said it last week with the whole delay of game that we had in the red zone when they were going like this and they wanted the play clock to be reset. It's week 17, guys. We have to have this stuff under control. We have to know when those situations happen and when they don't. So it's all goes into kind of staying in that ball control football mindset, keeping the game in our hands, not having to create these crazy situations where we need Jaden Daniels to put that Superman cape on. That Superman cape needs to stay in the closet this week. I don't care about his numbers. I don't care about rookie of the week. I care about key number 3, which is let's get everybody out of there healthy. We would love to get the starters on the bench for that fourth quarter or for a few sequences, whatever it needs to be. Let's play that ball control football. Let's stay in control of the game. Let's keep the game where it needs to be. And then let's get those starters out to end the game.
I think there needs to be a discussion with Jaden before this game.
Yeah.
And I think it needs to go something like, we want to win. No doubt about it. We want to beat this team. We want to see you do it more from the pocket. I like your idea, quick game, right? You get the ball out of his hands, run some slants. It's a different situation, than we had last week in terms of the opponent. Get the ball out of his hands quick, let the guys do their thing. We've seen OZ do a really good job of, getting Yak. Ertz is a comfortable target. Let's get Terry more involved. But the most important thing coming out of this season, and I'll include the playoffs, over wins and losses, is Jaden Daniels coming out of this thing healthy. It's the most important thing because this is, yes, we're going to go for it. And yes, we're going to try and win 1, 2, 3, 4 playoff games. We're going to do everything that we can. I don't think anyone's chalking this up to be the Super Bowl year. And even if it was, if he gets hurt, sustains something that has a setback, it's not something we're going to be able to maintain. So he's got to stay healthy, and that's got to be part of the keys of this game.
Yeah.
Is to get that done. And he can put the cape back on for the playoff game, no problem. But for this game, it's just not worth it. And I think that the circumstances of the game might dictate how hard we really push for that win in the end. Because at some point, like I said, all those guys that we talked about in the injury report, I don't expect any of them to play this week. I expect just about all of them to play in that first playoff game. Just to see where things are trending with those guys. So, and hopefully, not just Jaden, we don't sustain any other major injuries. But, interesting enough, we've put ourselves in a position to come into that playoff game relatively healthy. We got some key pieces back with John Allen and Eckler. So it's exciting. We'd love to see them get out early and even see some Marcus Mariota snaps at the end of this game.
And for what it's worth, the scariest Jaden Daniels moment this year in terms of injury happened while he was in the pocket. for what it's worth. So you don't want to put him in a situation where he's hesitating and he's second guessing either. But that shot that he took at the beginning of the game against Atlanta last week, that had us all in, PTSD nightmares. Pop still wakes up in cold sweats thinking about it. That was in the pocket. That was in the pocket on a blown pass protection.
Yeah.
So that's where I lean towards. If Biadasz is 70% but ready to go, play him. Same with one of these tackles. I think we got to get one of these tackles back this week, and I would love to see Biadasz go. De'Ami Brown, take your time, brother. Marshawn Lattimore, take your time, big man. No worries on those two, but we got to get some of these offensive line pieces back this week, even if a guy needs a cortisol shot or whatever. Because we got to take care of Jaden for me.
And by the way, we're not saying don't run the ball at all.
Of course.
6 to 8 runs in the game, totally
sure.
fine with that.
But maybe we don't need to go quarterback.
Let's not run them up the middle, But yeah, and I think that stuff in ways keeping the defense on their heels helps protect them. It's a super smart take by you, right? So we're not saying don't do it at all. Let's just get back to normal.
Yeah.
In terms of, that mix there. And some of that's sticking with the run game. It's sometimes you saw that against Atlanta, right? It started to heat up, started to get better as things went forward. So I'll rip through these playoff scenarios.
Yeah, let's do it, man. So very simple. So scenario number 1, which would be if the playoffs started tomorrow, which they used to start tomorrow, but playoffs started tomorrow, they would play the Rams if playoffs started tomorrow. Bottom line right now, where things are in LA. But right now, Commanders play Rams if the Rams win and the Commanders win, which is interesting because the Rams are not playing starters next week. McVay is resting guys. So that gets interesting versus Seattle because they've already clinched, right? So the Commanders play the Rams if both teams win or if Green Bay loses to the Bears. Don't hold your breath on that. Seattle is already favored over the Rams, who have clinched. Commanders play the Buccaneers. This is what I think is the most likely scenario. If the Rams lose and the Bucs win versus New Orleans, Bucs have to win to clinch a playoff berth. Bucs are hanging 50 on every team in the NFL. This is not an easy matchup. This is my preferred matchup because I want our get back against these guys from week 1. But this is not an easy matchup. If we do see them, they need a win to clinch the playoff berth. They are a 13.5 point favorite over Spencer Rattler's New Orleans Saints. That team stinks. So that is an interesting one there. And then the scenario that we don't want to do, which is the Commanders lose, then we play the Eagles. And it is not because I'm afraid of the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't want to lose. You don't want to go into the playoffs with your rear end out first, backing in. You want to go into the playoffs winning off a 4-game win streak, playing with your hair on fire because you just beat out the Dallas Cowboys by 35 points. That's how I want to go into the playoffs. So Philly, we ain't scared of y'all. If you get past Green Bay, we'll see you in the divisional round and we'll do what we need to do then. But that would be the scenario if we see them. So I'm not ducking no smoke from the Philadelphia Eagles, but I want my get back on the Bucs first. And if we need to knock y'all out in the wild card, we'll do that too. So that's where I'm at. What would you prefer to play, Pop?
I definitely don't want to play Philly. I mean, it's not like you said. I mean, I think it's going to be a battle and we'd go for it. And we showed that we can execute against their defense. But I think going into Philly, presumably Hurts will be back and healthy. That's just the toughest. That's going to be the toughest out to get that one. So Bucs or Rams to me are almost a flip of the coin. Playing the Bucs, not having to go cross country might be good. I think we can beat either one of those teams. I think playing the Bucs now versus first week of the season is a very, very different scenario. I think either one of those teams could beat us. But yeah, I would say Bucs or Rams. I'll go with you. I'll say Bucs would be preferred. Seems like that's the most likely scenario at this point, as long as we can get that win. And assuming Green Bay just rolls over the Bears. So
Yep.
yeah. But it's an interesting week. Like, it was hard. We're gonna pick games next. It's hard coming up with 5 games to pick because there ain't many of them that mean much. There's probably only one game on the schedule that's got like real meaning to it in a way. So
yeah,
it was an interesting to try to find games to put on here. I had to spend some extra time on that, but I think I came up with a pretty good list here.
Yeah, and one interesting playoff implication. This will be the last thing before we get to our Bada Bets. Jalen Hurts has made 0 progress on his concussion protocol right now. So if we get that 6 seed, and if the Eagles play the Packers with a backup quarterback, that creates a scenario where there could be the 6 seed opens up the slightest possibility that the Packers, who have been a really good football team, I picked them to be in the NFC Championship. That opens up a scenario where if we run into the Packers, we play that game at home, which I guess would only be in the NFC Championship. That would involve us probably having to knock off the Vikings or the Lions as well. But that would be, or I guess we'd have to knock off the Vikings or whoever wins that game, the Vikings or the Rams. The cart's way before the horse on all that, but just something to keep in mind is that it is not, at this moment, there is uncertainty around whether or not Jalen Hurts will be ready for that wild card. We just saw them put up 41 points with Kenny Pickett, so don't know how much that's going to matter. But of course, the Eagles would rather have him.
I don't know how much progress we know he's going to make because he's not playing next week. There's no reason for him to. So I don't know.
It's an interesting thing. It's an interesting thing. Might be nothing. Anyways, just a quick aside there before the people segment, the Bada Bets.
That's it.
Let's get into it, guys. As you know, we pick 5 games every week, including the Commanders game, sometimes one more extra. On top of the Commanders game this week, it will be our 1 p.m. slot for it. So, last week, the boys were in lockstep. We were 4-1. So that puts me at 49, 38, and 1 for the year. So if you're counting, that's 11 games over 500. That puts Pop at 46, 41, and 1 over the year. So that also comfortably puts Pop 4 games over 500. Or 5 games, excuse me. So it's pretty good. So the boys are both guaranteed to finish 500 or better coming out of this week with this Bada Bet slate. So guys, if you're not tailing Dom and Pop at this point,
especially Dom,
maybe stop. You might be buying at the top. It might be good to kind of wait until the market corrects itself a little bit, but this has been it's been
super impressive
season. And, fantasy football did pretty well there, finished 2nd and 3rd place. We're not going to talk about the other league. Pop finished 3rd place in the other league. So big there. But overall, been a good year for Dom and Pop. A couple of ball knowers over here. So let's get right into it. Sunday, 1:00, Commanders 4.5-point favorites at Dallas. This is going to count for the Bada. Some weeks we don't count it. This week we are counting it. What do you like there, Pop?
Yeah, like I said, the reason we're counting it is it's hard to find games that had any meaning.
Stinkers.
This one's got some meaning because Commanders are playing for seeding. I think Vegas thinks Dallas is going to battle in this game because it's only 4.5 points. Yeah. So they think they're not going to lay down. So I don't think there's any reason for us to think that. But I think it ends up being a somewhat comfortable win for us, 7 to 10 points, something like that. Not where we're kind of in heart palpitation mode at the end of the game. So I'll go with our boys.
I do not want to be in heart palpitation mode at the end of this game. I do not want to be there. I'll take the boys too. Why not? Let's ride with the Commanders here. Yeah. We're owed one. We're due for a nice calming.
It's a vibe thing, and Lord knows my vibes aren't always on point when it comes to picking our favorite football team. I just got a vibe that, it might stay close for a while, but I got a vibe that this one's gonna be a little bit on the safer side for a win. I don't want to call it easy, but
I'm glad.
I don't think it'll be a blowout.
I'm glad you put that little aside in there, Pop, because your vibes are always on point. Let's be clear about that. Pop always brings the vibes. But anyways, Saturday, 8 p.m., little Saturday football, always fun. Bengals 1.5-point favorites at the Steelers. Bengals playing for their lives here. Steelers already clinched. I guess Steelers would need the Ravens to lose in order to win the division.
There's some seeding
what's going on
implications there.
Yeah.
There's some seeding implications. I mean, Pittsburgh's currently 5th. They do got tiebreak over the Chargers, but if they lose, Chargers win, then they lose that tiebreak. So they drop to 6th, and then they'd be playing Baltimore. So in order to avoid playing Baltimore, they want to stay in that 5th seed, and then they got a matchup against Houston, which I think is a much more favorable matchup than going to Baltimore. So I think there's some importance to this game. And they've been on a slide. So that's why I think this game's got some interest in it. I think they're going to want to turn that around and get that win versus another loss for the Steelers.
Yeah, you want to talk about a Saturday game. That will be Steelers and Texans, or Steelers at Texans. That would certainly be they might send that playoff game to London. But Bengals, I'm going to take the Bengals here. I'm just not betting against what's going on there right now. They're probably the hottest team in football right now. They need to be. I want the Bengals in the playoffs. I know nobody in the AFC wants the Bengals in the playoffs. I know our insider doesn't want the Bengals in the playoffs, and it's not even coming from a rooting against any particular team thing. It's just as a football fan, I want to see Joe Burrow play football in January. I'm
trouble with that is I think that the Broncos have a fairly easy one. So, that's trying to look up who they're playing, but if I remember
the Chiefs
right,
with Carson Wentz.
Chiefs. Yeah, so like the Broncos are like 13.5-point favorites or something because the Chiefs are resting everybody. So, I think this is a tough one, but I'll go Bengals as well.
Yeah,
I'll go Bengals as well.
I don't buy that Broncos-Chiefs game is as easy for the Broncos as people say, just because that defense is so elite on the Chiefs side of the football. And I know they probably won't play like Chris Jones, but they're still just so well coached defensively.
But I guess the Cincinnati Pittsburgh game is first, so they won't know any results or it fixes up for both those teams going out. Could be interesting. First round Pittsburgh. Ravens playoff matchup.
How can you not love
the insider to be too thrilled about that one?
How can you not love that? Although after the last one went at home,
that's true.
Certainly assume that the Ravens come out on top there. Bears at Packers. Packers 10.5-point favorites here. That is a ton of points, but the Bears stink.
Yeah,
the Bears stink.
Gotta believe they just want the season to be over.
Do you even play Caleb Williams in this game? Is that a dialogue that you can have? I'd shut him down with the amount of hits that he's been taking. I don't see any.
Maybe you start him, but you kind of keep an eye on it and pull on.
You can't keep an eye on the kid because he holds the ball for 12 seconds every time the snap out. Anyways, I'm taking the Packers here. I would shut down Caleb Williams. Get on to next year in one piece. Pray that Ben Johnson takes that blank check.
Agree. I'll go Packers as well.
Yeah. Midis Biatch Bears fans. I mean, that can't feel good. Seahawks 6.5-point favorites at the Rams. What do you like there, Pop?
It's a tough one, right? You said the Rams are playing backups. I guess Seahawks have motivation. They're out. They're eliminated. Maybe they just want to finish strong and division rival. I guess I'll go with the Seahawks. I really don't know who to pick in this game. I mentioned it was really hard finding 5 games. So if this was one of the best 5, evidence of itself. If you had a better pick, let me know in the comments. But I guess I'll just go Seahawks off the back of it appears as if Vegas is under the impression that Seahawks are going to try and win this, and the Rams don't much care. I guess they don't really care if they end up 3rd or 4th seed and what that matchup is. But yeah. I'll go Seahawks.
I'm going Seahawks as well here. It's a ton of points, but I mean, when Sean McVay wants to go belly up he goes belly up. I mean, the Rams, they never play guys in the preseason. They famously don't take those games very seriously. They've dealt with injury before. They don't take risks with it when it comes to this kind of stuff. So I think you're going to see guys that might not even be on NFL rosters next year playing for the Rams this weekend. So I would not. I would just stay away from putting your money behind them. But this is a week that could really get us in some trouble on the Bada Bets because these are big numbers and this is just like such a wonky week. But one thing that ain't wonky, this is appointment viewing for me. Vikings at Lions. This is potential to be the game of the year. Lions 3-point favorites. I guess this all comes down to this, right? For the North?
Yeah.
For the NFC North.
Well, number one seed, everything.
So if you're new here, you get that number one seed. You are guaranteed only home playoff games until the Super Bowl. You lose this game. Not only do you lose out on that home field and that number one seed and that bye week, which is critical, especially for the Lions dealing with all the injuries that they're dealing with, but any team in the NFL would love to have a week off this time of year. You also now have to go on the road. And either one of these scenarios, I'm sure the Lions have probably the biggest home field advantage in the NFC, except for maybe the Eagles, I would say. You don't want to go through, if you're the Vikings, you do not want to go through Detroit to that Super Bowl. Hell, if you're the Commanders, I'd much rather go play in Minnesota than Detroit. This is a real serious, this is the best kind of January football right here. NFC North, Vikings at Lions 3-point favorites. Without further ado, I'm taking the Detroit football Lions here. I think they get it done. Pop, where are you at?
Zagging. I think the Vikings might be the best team in the NFC. I'm going to zag. They're healthier. They're rolling week after week. They come through when we think they might not. I just think they're the healthier team and right now maybe the better team. Now, Lions get healthy in the playoffs. That could change my mind. They do get the home field advantage here, but I like the Vikings.
I can't hate that. As I said it, I was like, maybe I rolled a little too easily with the Lions, and that's my bias coming into play here, just because I like that team. But I like that Vikings pick. I like that Vikings pick a lot. So that's where we're at.
See how it goes. It should be a great game, like you said. Last game of the regular season. Hard to believe.
Yeah, big one. For me, it really just comes down to, like, if that's a close game, I think Sam Darnold blinks first. That's what it comes down to for me. And you saw how he kind of, threw some picks and made things a little more interesting than he needed to last week against the Packers. Yeah. So that's where I'm at. But let's wrap this thing up, man. Pop, no delay from the boys here. New Year's Day, everybody out late, banged up from the night before, and the boys rip off a 45-minute podcast. What more can you ask for from the guys here to start off 2025? If you're still with us, we're wishing a happy and healthy new year to all of our great subscribers, everybody watching us. Hope all is well for all you guys as we wrap up this holiday season and get into 2025. The best is yet to come for us Commanders fans. This is a lot of fun. It's only getting better. Let's wrap this thing up. Without further ado, I've been Dom.
This is Pop.
Thank you for another great week, everybody, and hail to the Commanders.
Hail.